Hey, everybody. We're going to get going with the next talk of the day. So if everybody can get seated. Where's our, the next talk. OK. So the next talk is about doing data visualizations and alerting with Grafana from Dan Cech. Wait, how do I pronounce it? Cech? All right. Yes. So I'm very happy that Grafana is here. I still remember, I think it was April of 2014 when Torkel added support for InfluxDB to Grafana. At the time, he had Graphite and OpenTSDB. And it was immediately obvious that Grafana was like a really, really powerful dashboarding tool. And that was, obviously, that was 3 years ago, and they've done a lot since then. So we're happy to have them as a sponsor and happy to have Dan presenting on data visualizations. Dan?
Hi. I got the coveted before lunch spot, I see. But hopefully we can get through and make it to lunch. So my name's Dan, and I work for Grafana Labs, who you may previously have known as RainTank. We got sick of explaining to everyone what RainTank was and decided that Grafana Labs would be a lot more accessible. So we changed our name a little while back. And at Grafana Labs, I basically run platform services. So I built and operate Grafana.com, which we'll talk more about in a moment. And I'm also involved with our Grafana Cloud projects, which are our hosted Grafana offering and our hosted metrics. Both of those are products that we're making available as under a software as a service basis and give people a really easy way to get started with Grafana. Obviously, I hack on Grafana. We're a small company, and we do everyone pitches in on Grafana. So it's really great to be able to do that and to get that feedback from users to say, people are using something that I wrote, and we really encourage people to get involved with that. I would encourage everyone here to come and hack on Grafana, whether it is contributing a PR, no matter how small, they're all appreciated, or getting involved on the plugin side of things. We have a huge plugin author community, and it's one of the big strengths of Grafana, and one of the things that really makes Grafana the system that it is that ability for people to contribute plugins and really expand Grafana to be able to do anything, integrate with anything. And it gives you that ability to get your dashboards to do exactly what you want them to do. Oh, I'm also a Graphite contributor, but that's enough about that. So this is the part of the talk where I'm really not sure about where we are in the room. In these kinds of conferences, very often we see a huge mix of people who've been using Grafana for ages, and we thank you. It's great to have such a big user base, but we also see a lot of people who haven't come across Grafana before. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time kind of doing a little brief introduction to explain what is Grafana, and to get anyone who hasn't run into Grafana before kind of up to speed on what we're talking about. So Grafana is an open source dashboarding and graphing system. It allows you to take data from any number of different backend systems, TSDBs, RDBMSs, external systems like CloudWatch, Azure Metrics, bring it all together and to produce really beautiful dashboards that can show all of the metrics that you're gathering across all of your infrastructure together in one place. You know, it's that single pane of glass, holy grail. And that's what we pride ourselves on, and that's, I think, apart from how beautiful it looks, of what makes people love Grafana. And we love to be able to do that and to be able to give everyone the tools to take all of these metrics and take all of the work that you're doing on observability and instrumenting everything that's going on, gathering all of that data and bringing it together and bringing it somewhere where you can produce something that you can take to your boss and say, hey, look here, this is what we have. This gives you an overview of X, or this gives you the ability to go and drill down into Y without needing to go into the database and write the queries yourself. Because for a lot of the non-technical folks, that's a really daunting thing. And with Grafana, we can kind of make that easy and make metrics more accessible and really show people the value of, okay, this is the reason that we're gathering all this stuff. This is the reason that we're spending all this money on storing all of this data, that you can use it, you can get value out of it. The other big thing that Grafana has started doing, we started with the 4.0 release, is allowing people to visualize their monitoring. So quite often you have a scenario where you have your dashboards and you have your monitors, and never the two shall meet. And the problem with that becomes you have this interface in Grafana that's allowing people to create wonderful dashboards. But then if you have to go into another system and manually write queries and define thresholds and do things like that with your alerting, people don't do it. You end up with where your alerting is someone in the NOC sitting and watching the screens and looking to see where they've gone up, because the NOC guys aren't empowered to go and create alerts. So with Grafana, what we do is we make that easy for people. We make it really easy to go to a panel in your dashboard and say, hey, you know, I've got this line here, and I want to alert on that. I want to know if it goes too high, if it goes too low, those kinds of things. And it comes back to that core of what we're doing with Grafana of empowering people to be able to do that, to say, this is a metric that I care about, and this is a metric I want to be alerted on and know if something's going on with it. And obviously, Grafana, you know, since that merge that Paul talked about, you know, has been a great way to visualize your data from InfluxDB, and a great way to explore the data that you're storing in InfluxDB. You know, we're really grateful to have, you know, a great set of time series databases to build on top of, and without the highly performant backend, you know, a tool like Grafana just couldn't be as fun and interactive to use if you have to wait forever for your backend to go and crunch the queries. So, how do you get started using Grafana? Well, there are a few different ways, similar to Influx, similar to basically everyone right now. If you go to grafana.com/get, we'll direct you exactly where you need to go. There are downloads for Linux, Windows, Mac, one line to run it with Docker. We also have free hosted Grafana. So you can go to grafana.com, you can get a free hosted Grafana instance for you to use, connect it to your time series databases, build dashboards, do all that sort of stuff. It takes about 90 seconds to spin one up and have it available for you, fully integrated with your grafana.com account. You can install any plugin that's available. You can install into hosted Grafana. It is your instance. If you want to do something with your larger as a company thing, we have paid hosted Grafana plans. We can support any size Grafana deployment. Everyone gets their own Grafana, no noisy neighbors, etc. And we also offer support plans around Grafana. So if you're looking to get deeper into that within an enterprise, come talk to us. We can definitely help you out. So when you log into Grafana, you get the home dashboard. Now, this is kind of the hub of everything within Grafana. This is where you'll get going, and this is where you manage what's going on within your instance. The basic three components here are your Getting Started wizard, which we'll look at in a second. So that's going to help you walk through getting going with Grafana and getting set up. You have your favorite dashboards, and this is kind of the go-to place for most users. When they log into Grafana, it's going to show you all of the dashboards that you've recently viewed and the dashboards that you've starred as being favorites of yours. It gives you quick access to those. Then, on the right-hand side, you can see here, in this particular instance that I've used for the screenshot, we have no plugins. Once you start installing plugins into your Grafana, you'll see them there, keep track of the status of them, see when new updates are out for plugins, they'll show up right there. You'll be able to see, oh, okay, there's a new update available. If you're on hosted Grafana, one click to upgrade. If you're running Grafana in-house, one line on the bash shell to upgrade your plugins. Well, let's go back for a second. Once we click the green button there, we get into data sources or data sources. I'm from Australia. I've been in the US long enough now that I flip back and forth. Don't worry about it, it'll be okay. I've come to terms with that. So, Grafana is able to display data or data from multiple data sources. And this is where you get that single pane of glass functionality. InfluxDB is obviously one of them. We also support out-of-the-box Graphite, Elasticsearch, Prometheus, OpenTSDB, CloudWatch, and we've just added MySQL and Postgres support. So if you have time series-ish data that's stranded in MySQL or Postgres, we can get at that now. And then you obviously with table panels are able to show table-type data out of databases. So that's all what's included out of the box. But you say, well, I've got something else that I want to be able to get into Grafana. So there are a whole host of additional source plugins at grafana.com/plugins. You can find plugins for a lot of different time series-ish systems. Zabbix is one that's very popular. But basically, just about anywhere that you can store data, you'll be able to find a plugin there. We recently just launched an Azure monitoring plugin. So if you're using Azure to run your infrastructure, you can pull metrics directly from Azure down into Grafana in real time. One-click install on hosted Grafana, as we've said. There's your one line of CLI for installing a plugin, a data source plugin on an on-prem Grafana. And again, if you find a data source that there is not an existing plugin for, we're really happy to help people to write plugins and publish them on grafana.com so that other people can use them. So now we get to kind of more of the how-to part of the talk. Let's walk through creating a data source and creating a basic dashboard. And along the way, we can learn a few things, get some tips and tricks for how to use Grafana with InfluxDB. So here we have the basic screen in front of that you get to when you click the green button there to create a data source. In InfluxDB and Grafana, what you're going to do is Grafana will have a single data source for every database that exists in your Influx. So when you're naming these things, generally you want to give them a name that corresponds to the Influx database. Don't just call it InfluxDB, because your users will get really confused. Pretty standard, you're going to tell Grafana the address of your InfluxDB. You're going to want to use proxy mode so that we can do alerting effectively. The other big thing to look at here is obviously down under InfluxDB, you're going to configure your database. If you have authentication enabled, username, password. All right, all very straightforward. The HTTPS options are there if you are running against a remote Influx, you want to put it behind an Nginx reverse proxy, do that sort of stuff. That's all supported out of the box by Grafana. At the very bottom of this screen, you have your setting for the minimum time interval. So what that's going to do is that's going to control the smallest window interval that Grafana will send to Influx when it's sending its queries. In this instance, I'm using Telegraph, and Telegraph is sending data every 10 seconds. So I'm going to set this to 10 seconds. You can override that setting per panel within your dashboards, but if you don't set it, Grafana is going to window your graphs based on how many pixels wide they are, and assume that Influx has enough data. And if you're not sending Influx data regularly enough to do that, then Grafana will get back a bunch of nulls because it's going to window by 1 second, for example. So that's your first kind of pro tip for using Influx with Grafana, is set that according to the rate at which you're sending data into Influx, and that way Grafana and Influx will be in sync and everything will work happily. And that's it. At this point, we have a data source that is connected to our Telegraph database on our InfluxDB server, and it's ready to go. We're ready to start using it. That's all there is to it. So now we can go and start looking at dashboards. So within Grafana, everything starts from a dashboard. There are some dashboarding systems out there that kind of start with panels and you assemble them into dashboards. Grafana works the other way, where you start with a dashboard and then you're going to add panels onto that dashboard. Sneak preview, well, not really preview, but a tip. In Grafana 5, there is a new layout engine coming, which is going to give you a huge amount more flexibility in the way that you put panels onto dashboards. We're really excited about that. Keep an eye out for the 5.0 betas and check that out. It is really cool. Torkel has been doing some amazing work on it. I unfortunately don't have a demo of it today. But on each dashboard, you build it up by creating panels and adding them on. And out of the box, you've got a bunch of different types of panels. So your graph panel is straightforward line, bar, scatter type plots. Single stats are little gauges. We'll get through those in a minute. We also have tables, text panels, heat maps, lists of things within Grafana, and a ton more panels at grafana.com/plugins. So same installation process as for a data source plugin. Really straightforward, really easy, and then bam, you can start using that panel within your dashboards. And when I say tons, I mean tons. Here's a small sampling. So you see we have a world map plugin that can take data from pretty much any data source that's got some sort of geotag associated with it, whether it's an Elasticsearch geotag, whether it's city names, things like that, longitude, latitude, plot on a map, clock panels, countdowns, time zones, all that sort of stuff, pie chart, the one that Torkel resisted for a very, very long time, but it's there, and it's now become one of our most popular plugins. People love pie charts. Who would have thought? We have kind of more esoteric stuff like this bubble chart down on the bottom. There's someone contributed a 3D rendered globe within Grafana that you can have. And then there is also an Influx admin panel that someone contributed, which gives you the ability within Grafana to keep an eye on what queries are active within your Influx, and do some basic admin tasks as well directly from within Grafana. And I think there's 40 or 50 more on grafana.com right now. you can also import dashboards. So again, Grafana.com, trying to make this thing easy to use. We have an enormous list of pre-made dashboards that have been contributed by other users. So if you're looking to build a dashboard, go take a look there. You can filter it by data source, by what your collector is, stuff like that, and find all sorts of dashboards to download. Really easy. There is a very, very simple import process within Grafana, and you can then, once you've imported the dashboard, go hack it up, make it suit your use case, but it gives you a baseline to build from. And if you take a dashboard and make something useful out of it, please share what you're doing on Grafana.com. It helps other users immensely. We have some really popular dashboards on there that are really great to help people get started with things like telegraph stats, various other use cases. But for the purpose of today's talk, we'll just walk through creating a dashboard from scratch. So on the top bar of Grafana, you've got your dashboard selector, which this one looks kind of pretty sad. I only have one dashboard on there that I imported into this test instance. But once you start using, it gets all kinds of filled up. Dashboards can be tagged, so you can find them easily, and you can star dashboards that are your favorites. At the bottom, though, you've got your new dashboard button and your import dashboard button. Importing, just put in a URL you've copied from Grafana.com. You can import a dashboard right in. You can import dashboards directly from JSON, so on. So we're going to hit create. We end up in the create screen there on the right, which gives us the ability, we now have a blank dashboard, has no panels on it. We're going to go and add a graph panel. So we've hit graph. We have a blank graph panel there. And we'll go ahead, hover on the title, hit edit, and we can start creating our very first Influx query. So I've selected here the Influx data source and put in a pretty basic query there. I'm selecting some data, not really any particular conditions on it right now. This is pretty much straight out of the box, and I'm going to give it an alias. And we have a graph. So really, really simple. Grafana provides autocomplete drop-downs for the different tags, for your different fields, all that sort of stuff it's querying out. So users can really get into this very easily. Similar sort of story for single stat panel. We can give ourselves a query. In this case, I'm doing like CPU usage, and start to play with some of the options. So we can set thresholds in there for a colored background, select different displays. So you want a gauge, you want to have a spark line, all those kinds of things are there. And bam, there's your dashboard. We walk through it here in about 3 minutes. And that's about how long it's going to take. So now we've got a basic dashboard, but you've really just scratched the surface of what's possible. And once you start digging in, you start to find more and more different things that you can do with Grafana. So the problem with that dashboard is that there's no grouping. Everything's just all together. It works great when you've got a single host. Okay, I'm seeing that stuff. But we want to be able to have multiple hosts. So we start to think, okay, well, what's the purpose of this dashboard? Are we going to show an overview of the system? Are we giving people the ability to drill down into specific, so okay, I want to go and have a look at a specific host. Are we using it for alerting? Do we want to show, you kind of have to start at this point thinking about what the purpose of the dashboard is. So for this dashboard, we're going to go ahead and make it kind of more of an exploration dashboard and give you the ability to go and start drilling down and getting at individual hosts. This is the kind of thing that you're going to use quite often as the basis for your alerting. Your alerts on an overall dashboard are going to tend to be more global. Okay, some global stat is too high or too low or something like that. where on this dashboard, since we're doing Telegraph, you're going to want to say, okay, well, I want to be able to see a global overview, but I want my alerts to be on an individual basis. So what we'll do is start using group by and start using tags in our aliases. So I'm going to add a tag in the group by. Everyone here who's used Influx, you understand how this works in InfluxQL. Works exactly the same way in Grafana. So we're going to add that, and then we're going to add a tag in the alias by field. So this is another little pro tip to give you nice names. So now, instead of having a single line for memory usage, we have two. I actually had two hosts. Who would have guessed? This is what you have to be careful of. Make sure that your dashboards are showing an accurate view of what's going on. So now we have a query that's going to be good for us to use for alerting. Which brings us to alerting. So now that we have this panel that's got multiple lines on it showing multiple hosts, we can set up an alert and say, okay, well, we're going to create a rule for that panel, and Grafana is going to take that rule, it's going to take the query that you specify, and it's going to execute it on a regular basis and check the results for every series against the thresholds that you're using. Now, this is a really simple example. We're just going to have a static threshold and check against it. When you start to get more advanced with this stuff, you start to use some more of the analytics capabilities that are in Influx, and this is where the power of the new IFQL is going to really come into its own, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to use IFQL to do more advanced processing within the alerting queries, and then my thresholds aren't above X. It's like, okay, well, the rate of change from the average from yesterday is above X. These kinds of things. And that's where this stuff starts to get really interesting, and we're really excited about IFQL and the capabilities it's going to bring to systems like Grafana. Alerting doesn't just support InfluxDB. We have alert support for multiple backends. There's a whole list there. And we have a ton of notifiers. Again, a whole list of different options, so you can send alerts via email, Slack, etc. Defining an alert is, again, as with all things in Grafana, to get up and going, very, very simple. You go into the edit screen for your graph panel there. There's an alert tab, and we're going to go through and create a basic alert. We're just going to give it a name. We're going to specify how often the query is going to run, and then we're saying, okay, if the average of my query over the last 5 minutes is above a particular value, then I'm going to alert. Really straightforward, really simple, really easy for people to get going with. We'll hit the test button, and there you can get some more data about exactly what's coming back from Influx and what the alert's actually doing. So now we can set up our notifications. Grafana has the idea of notification channels. You set up any number of different channels, and each channel defines, okay, how am I being alerted, who's it going to, and whatever options it might need. So now we set up notifications for that alert. We're going to select which channels we want, and we can include a message there. And within Grafana Labs, we find this a really good place to put links to runbooks, so that whoever gets this alert knows what to do with it. So, hey, if this is alerting, check X, check Y, go look at this runbook, things like that. Now we go into making this dashboard a little bit more useful for exploration. So we have a dashboard now, we have alerts. It's going to monitor the memory usage of all of our hosts. If any of them goes over 80%, then it's going to send us an alert. That's great, wonderful. We get this alert, we go to this dashboard, we've got a couple of hundred hosts on there. It's not really useful to us. We want to be able to drill down. We want to be able to see, okay, what's going on with that particular host. So we're going to use template variables. We just have to make sure that when we do that, that we don't cause a problem for alerting. by saying, okay, now suddenly our alerting query is using these template variables, and it's only going to check whatever host someone looked at last, because they're tied together. So we get around that, but we'll get into that in a second. So we're going to add a template variable. We create it, define, okay, we're going to choose a query here from Influx, and we're going to get a list of the hosts that we have defined. So now we go into our query, and this is where we have another tip here. Take the query that you're using for alerting and duplicate it. Then we can modify it for display, but it's still here on the panel. So you have one query that's on the panel that we're not using to display on the panel, but we're using for alerting, and it's going to show all hosts. On the query that we are going to use for display, we're going to add a where clause. We say, okay, where the host is equal to whatever we've selected in the template variable. So now I can go to the screen, and I get an option there to select which host I want. Currently, it's got all selected. We see everything. I'm going to select one of the hosts. Now we can just drill straight down into that single host and get a view of exactly what's going on with that particular host. Now, as I was writing the slides for this, I created another panel there for disk usage, and we can see that's also filtered down because I have the same tag added there. Where things get even more interesting from a drill down point of view, and this is a feature that was added relatively recently to Grafana, is the Adhoc Filters. So say your users are like, okay, that's great, I can select host. I want to be able to also filter by path name in the disk to see what the disk usage is, things like that. So we can add ad hoc filters. We're going to go into template variables again and create this ad hoc filter, which is basically a special functionality within Grafana. Once you do that, then we get a dynamic selection that allows us to select and add new filters to all the queries in the dashboard on the fly. So here we can see we hit there's a plus there. We hit that. We can select a tag. And then we get a drop down of all the different values that we want. We can select a value, and we can filter everything on that dashboard by that value. And that's what gives you that capability now within this dashboard. We've got both alerts, but we also now have the capability to go and drill down, slice and dice into the data, and get down to where we want to be. IFQL support is coming soon. I know everyone's waiting for it. We're really excited about the possibilities. You know, it opens up new worlds to us as far as what we can do with monitoring and alerting within Grafana, and it really opens up a huge amount of possibility in terms of the kinds of dashboards people can create. Right now, as you can see here on the screenshot, we have a new editor for manually editing queries that we've been working on within Grafana and starting to spread out among the data source plugins. So we have that working for IFQL. It has full syntax highlighting and generally gives you nice looking IFQL queries. We are working on a UI to be able to build them in a point and click style and make that more accessible to end users. Because that's what we're all about. That is what Grafana is all about. And that's where we continually driving with all the work that we're doing on Grafana is to democratize metrics. You know, we keep saying it. We have the posters. I have some over there if anyone would like one. But that's what this is all about. This is all about taking the data that is too often locked up in your time series database and only available to the people who have the skills to be able to go and write InfluxQL or Graphite or OpenTSDB or Prometheus queries manually, and it's just not accessible to people. So the idea behind Grafana is to make it easier, make it more fun, and make it possible for non-technical users to drill down and find the data that they need. And on top of that, then enable them to set up their own alerts and be able to get notified when stuff goes wrong with the systems that they're building. We have a huge library of panels. Use it, please. Anyone who is writing any plugins or writing custom panels, writing custom dashboards, let us help you get them out there. Let us help people find them. That's a huge part of what we do. Is we constantly have people thinking of new and exciting ways to visualize data, and we love getting that out and sharing it with people. In the end, it all comes down to just trying to bring data together, create this place where people can build dashboards simply and easily, get all of that data into one place, get it all shown easily, and really be that single pane of glass. You know, the elusive single pane of glass is really close here. So please take advantage of it. We're really proud of all the work that's been going on. We're really excited about continuing to release Grafana as an open source project, and about all of the new features that are coming down the line with 5.0. I really hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Thank you. Looks like we have a few minutes left for questions.
Yeah, a quick question. It seems like you're focusing primarily on your dark theme, and it looks fantastic. But I noticed that the light theme hasn't been getting any attention. Do you have any plans on going back and updating the light theme?
Yes. So the light theme is getting attention, not as much as the dark theme, unfortunately. And you know, we're definitely cognizant that there are probably more users out there than we realize who use the light theme. So that's great feedback, and thanks.
Right.
Thanks, talk. What's the good way to start writing Grafana plugins?
Well, if you look in the documentation, we have links in there to a couple of really good articles that Daniel Lee on our team has written, which walk you through the details of how he started writing Grafana plugins. They actually basically walk through from beginning to end how the clock plugin was created. So those are really good resources. At GrafanaCon, we will be doing hackathons on creating plugins. That's in Amsterdam in March. So if you want to come and join us for that and get involved with writing plugins, we'll be doing sessions there. There's also a huge community on GitHub and on our Grafana community at grafana.org site. And there's a lot of how-tos and that sort of stuff there. So yeah, I would definitely start with those. If you have specific questions, we really love hearing from people who are writing plugins. We love to help people get their plugins going. If you have a look on, there's a GitHub repo for our plugin repository. So that's all public, that's all available. You're more than welcome to open issues there with any questions you might have or anything like that as well. We try and keep on top of that and really help people get through that process of getting a plugin to the point where it can be published. So don't be afraid that you might think your plugin is not good enough to be published. We're here to help. We're here to help you get all the rough edges polished out and get it up there so that other people can benefit from it. Looks like everyone's just thinking about lunch. Yeah. I think if there are no more questions, let's eat. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Dan. So we have lunch right over there until 1:15. So hopefully everybody can kill the hangry, and then we'll kick back off then.